Hi. Hi. Okay. So, I am going to do a talk that was inspired by one of my favorite paintings by Ed Ruscha. And it comes from the idea that, like, in our careers, we have to start over a lot of times. I've had 3 jobs in my life, so each of those jobs I've had to start over. But also sometimes you're working on a project and you have to start over. Sometimes you have to start over because that's the brief, like with a project that you work on over and over and over for years and years. You have to like rethink it. Sometimes you have to start over because you're doing a rebrand. And sometimes you have to start over because something goes really, really horribly wrong. So I have kind of one of each of those stories for you tonight. So, and also normally at the beginning of my, when I'm sort of meeting a bunch of new people, I forgot to say, thank you. Thank you for coming here. Thank you. It's nice for inviting me here for this very first ever Nicer Tuesday. It's really awesome to be here. I am a born and bred New Yorker, so doing something in my hometown is really, really nice and really special. And my team is here, and I'm so happy because they really do the bulk of this work that you're going to see, not me. Anyway, so at the beginning, I'm just going to show you a little film. I won the AIGA medal last year, and which is amazing and like a lifelong dream, and literally a lifelong dream because my parents are graphic designers, as you'll find out in a second. And so we had to kind of make our own film about it because the AIGA is, not, well, whatever. Love the AIGA. Thank you for the medal. Anyway, we made the films for the 3 honorees, and I don't have any reason to show it. We worked really hard on it. Again, especially my team, who does more of the work. And so I'm going to start by showing this film that will sort of tell you the story of me in case you don't know anything about it, which I would not presume that you do. So, here. I'm Emily Oberman. I'm a graphic designer raised by graphic designers. I'm also a creative director, a teacher, a visual storyteller, and an entertainment enthusiast. I believe that all good design has wit. And wit is different than funny. Wit is a little spark, a little tweak, a little wink. And that is what can take a good brand and make it a great brand. Growing up was great. There was always design in our house, always design in my life. My parents are my greatest inspiration, my heroes, and my mentors. And they taught me what a life full of design was all about. And being in New York in the 80s, when that explosion of art and design was happening, was so amazing, and I love that this is my city. Unlike a lot of people I know, I feel like my professional career has been kind of like a straight shot. But I took a year off from Cooper Union to study acting with Stella Adler. And I realized method acting is a really important part of the way I practice design. That whatever we do always feels more like the client than it feels like us. My life has been broken into these 3 chapters, like 3 acts. At M & Company, we always tried to do things in a really undesigned way to get things just exactly not quite right. Beautiful, but imperfect. Number 17 was Act 2. I got to have a company with my best friend, Bonnie Siegler, and we were 2 women who kind of didn't take any crap, and we got to do work that hopefully move the needle forward for companies owned by women, companies that are small and mighty and driven by doing the right thing at the right time. I've been in Pentagram for 10 years now, and I sort of had no idea that I would be able to do projects as big and as wide-reaching as what I get to do I also still get to do really small projects that I'm passionate about. Saturday Night Live, it's just been a part of my life from childhood, from watching the very first episode with George Carlin to, watching it this weekend with my kids. Every year that we do the opening sequence, bringing it to life, not just through the way the camera moves through the city, but the way the type comes on and goes off. Getting this award, besides being a huge honor, is another moment to sort of look at what you want to do. One of the things that I want to do is to make sure that I'm not just doing design for design's sake, that I'm doing design that has a reason for being. Thank you. Also my kids, those kids who are actually way bigger now, they're right here. Anyway, so I'm just going to barrel through this stuff because there's a lot. So Saturday Night Live is a project I've been working on for 28 years. So there have been some ups and downs, so this is called Forlorn. Puns are my favorite, as my team will say. So like I said, I've watched every episode. It made it seem like I watched Saturday Night Live with George Carlin, but he was just on the show. I think I've seen every single episode since the very first one. I love it. It's like this love affair. And so at a certain point when we had number 17, Bonnie and I were asked to start working on the show. We started with parody commercials, and then eventually we were asked to do the logo. And so we looked at the history of the SNL logos, and at the time this was the logo, and it was done by a man named Eric Baker. And it was, Saturday Night Live was always this clubby downtown brick wall kind of skin of their teeth kind of thing. And we sort of thought, you are so not that anymore. You are actually like the sort of granddaddy of sketch comedy. You're kind of more cool than that. You're kind of blue note jazz. So we're going to take you and change this scrappy thing and move it into this cool thing. So we went and designed a nice piece of type that was clean and modern and, kind of timeless based on those Blue Note Jazz album covers. And then we also wanted it to have one little tiny idea. And the idea was everyone says Saturday Night Live. It's just one word. So, boop, no letter spacing. And that became the logo for the next chunk of years. And then we were asked to work on the titles, which was kind of amazing. And there's a brief. And the brief is the same for every year that we've ever worked on the titles. It's the party you wish you were at, the cast you feel like you know, and in the greatest city in the world. And then we added to it, the show should be funny, the open should not. And that's been the rule ever since. And so, with that in mind, this is the first title sequence that we ever did. It was shot in one club, in one night, with the entire cast there. Super 90s, right? With the shoulder pads and the whole thing. And then what we add to it is like this little pops of color and this little bits of type. And at the time, we were just like the people doing the type, but they let us go to the edits. And one day I walked into the edit and I saw that cut. And that was me. And so I got to be in the open once. And I had an ex-boyfriend who saw the open. He was like, that was Emily. And his friend was like, let it go. Then, in 2008, Lorne decided that it was time to change the titles. And this is, he's the king, he gets to decide, and so he wanted a new logo, and so that was fine. We decided that it would go from this, Saturday Night Live, one word, onomatopoeia, to Saturday Night Live. So it's just getting bigger. And it's still long and wider and bolder, and we presented it, and he loved it and approved it, and we did, I think we didn't change the opening sequence at the time, and so we edited it into the opening sequence, and this is a bumper shot by Mary Ellen Matthews, the photographer for the show, and we finished the titles. You always finish them at like 11:20 on Saturday night of the live show, and everyone went home after the party, and I woke up on Sunday morning to the phone ringing to a man named Jim Signorelli, who's the head of the film unit, saying Lorne doesn't like the logo. And I said, oh well, catch you next year. And he was like, no, 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 no. Lauren doesn't like the logo. Fix it before next week. And so I thought, fuck. So we got to work and started working on new logos, sort of in the same vein. I'm going to show you new logos. You're going to be like, how much work did you have to do to get to that? But we went from this to this. So it was still Saturday Night Live, but now it's like a wedding cake. And we presented it to Lorne, and he approved it. And we re-edited the open to put it into the show, and it aired, and here's a bumper with Jamie Lee Presley, whoever that is, and with the logo in it. And I think she's on that show Mom now. Why do I know that? Sunday morning, Jim called again. Lauren doesn't like the logo. And now I knew we had to change it, and so we got to work. And we went from this to this. Fortunately, Saturday Night and Live each have fewer letters, so we could still do Saturday Night Live, like it getting larger and bigger. And it made a nice, tidy square. And we presented it. And when I say we presented it, it's not really like that. It takes a lot to get to meet Lauren. Anyway, it wasn't us. But it went through the steps, and he approved it and liked it, and these bumpers, everything, every scrap of evidence of any of these logos were erased. I had to go hard to find these. And so now when you look and you see reruns of these episodes, they look like this. And that became the logo for the next, I think, 10 years. But that's a little starting over nightmare. So then here's a little montage of a bunch of different opens that we did, just showing this sort of the logo, but you can see how each one, just by looking at how we treated the logo differently, each one, every 2 or 3 years, we have to reinvent the whole title sequence and treat it a little differently. So we're telling the story so the whole thing feels updated and modern. The whole idea is that it feels a little different, but feels a little the same at the same time. So those are different ones. Somewhere between the two last ones, we closed number 17 and I moved to Pentagram. And so shortly after that, the 40th anniversary for Saturday Night Live came around, and we had to redesign. Lauren wanted a new logo for the 40th anniversary. And at that same time, the man named Don Pardo, who was the voice of Saturday Night Live from the beginning, died. Oh, yeah, Don Pardo. No, I'm serious. He was, but he died, and so having a logo that was his voice basically didn't seem that necessary anymore. So when we did the 40th anniversary logo, we decided instead to do something that was more of a tribute to sort of the city, and city lights and grids and, vertical architecture, and also that you could take apart and put back together, and it would always feel like the same logo no matter what it was doing. And so that became the new logo for the 40th anniversary. And then when we did the open, slowly I was like pushing my way into doing more of the open, not just the type, not just the editing, but now we're going to the shoots, and now we're going, working with the cinematographer, and so slowly wheedling my way into having control of the open. And so by now I'm pretty close. And so the idea that we conceptualized was that it was this giant type in the city, and that also that it should look like, because it was the 40th anniversary, if you left a tape in your VCR for 40 years and pulled it out, what would sort of the bleeding of the images look like? And again, we're editing this right up until the last minute every week. Every year. And then we don't start working on the show until 2 weeks before airtime. And so it's always done with incredible speed. And now you can never get the cast really in one room at the same time anymore. And then these are bumpers that we do for in and out of commercial. These were done with something called a pixel stick, where you digitally program in the type and then you move it through space. And when you shoot it, it looks as if the type is in space. No AI in any of this. Did you say next year? Depends on the writer's strike. Sorry. Anyway, they're making that joke themselves in the writers' room at SNL. Anyway, the next one I'm just going to show you is coming back from COVID. While COVID was happening, Lauren decided that SNL should come back, and that everyone needed to come back into the studio, and we needed a brand new open to show that everything was going to be okay, that the city was going to be fine, that we were all going to survive COVID, and SNL is often a barometer for that sort of thing. And by now, Mary Ellen Matthews and my team and I were working on creating the Open, and we were the creative directors of the Open. So we had this idea that it would be everyone in the cast actually welcoming you back to 30 Rock, back to the city, back to life. And so we did this we did a mood board that sort of said that, and we decided to bring handwriting into the whole thing to sort of show the humanity and to slow the whole Open down a little, to make it feel really human and really welcoming. And also for it to have this sort of Wizard of Oz thing, that there was a little bit of color seeping in to sort of show the joy seeping back into our lives. Every Open has a backstory. My incredible, wonderful team, which I would be saying even if they weren't standing right over there, did spend a lot of time writing all of the cast members' names, because it had to look like handwriting but not like a signature. And then for the shoot, instead of a craft services table, there was a COVID services table. And there was a woman whose job it was to keep people 6 feet apart the entire time. She had a 6-foot-long noodle that she walked around with to keep everyone apart. That guy had that mask was like like a Jenny Holzer sort of style mask. It like ran across his face. So that's that year. And then just right now, we just finished doing the most recent Open, which is Lauren wanted to sort of change everything up to head towards the 50th anniversary. We were kind of hoping that last Open would just last till the 50th anniversary. Why he needed to change it just 2 years before the 50th anniversary, we're not really sure, but he felt like we had to make some sort of change before the big change. So this was a little change to sort of let you know that we're heading towards the 50th anniversary. And he really, like, when he wasn't going to do it, then he was. But we thought it would be great to sort of go back to the roots of the show. And this is the very first logo. And so we wanted to do a little update of the very first logo as sort of a tribute to the beginning of the tribute to the 50th anniversary. And so we did this modernization of this logo. And I gotta say, that little N, that lowercase n, which to me was the beauty of the whole thing, really freaked people out. Like online, people hated that little N. Like there was just a lot of hatred for that N, which I love. I love that little N. And even to the point where like people at the show are kind of like, should we change that N? And I'm fighting hard to keep it. Anyway, I love it. And then we got to do this other thing, which was we decided to shoot the whole Open in 2 nights inside the Chelsea Hotel, this sort of iconic landmark of the show, and try to do a thing where we got the cast members together again. But it was very, very difficult. But we sort of managed to do this thing where we created these like sort of artsy tableaus in the Open. And then here are some bumpers from this year that I love, and some other shots. And that's Bowen Yang is my favorite shot in the whole Open. Plus he's my favorite cast member, and he used to be a graphic designer. Whoa! And he follows me on Instagram. But anyway, so that is where we are with SNL right now. We just finished the new logo for the 50th anniversary show. So 2 years in advance so they can start making merch. But I can't show it to you because they haven't put it out in the world yet. But anyway, Saturday Night Live is just fun to work on. Next thing I'm going to show is Wonka, the new Willy Wonka movie. So starting over, strike that, reverse it. It's a Willy Wonka reference, if anyone knows that. Anyway, to go from Gene Wilder, who is sort of the iconic, not Johnny Depp, Willy Wonka, to Timothée Chalamet, who, this is a prequel. Wow. So the story is a prequel. So in really true starting over style, we're making a logo that has to sort of explain the origin story, help explain the origin story of Willy Wonka himself. But the cool thing about working on movies like this is that you get to read the script, and sometimes you get to see rough cuts, and you also get to see all the sort of behind the scenes, all the stuff from when they're making the movie. And then we also do a ton of research whenever we do. I'm sure all of you guys, when you're doing a project, you do the research, to figure out what the story needs to be. So we looked at all the Wonka versions in film, we looked at Wonka from the books, we looked at all the Wonka candy, and then we looked at what candy from the early, late 19th century, early 20th century looked like, and then candy packaging from Europe, and what confectionery stores looked like, but also what handwriting would look like, both then and now. And the reason was because we had a very specific idea for what the story for this particular version, it's a musical also, the new Wonka. So the concept was that at the heart, this film is about family. It's about the warmth of a mother's presence to inspire the concept. So we wanted to portray the Wonka name in the handwriting. We wanted it to be his mother's handwriting. That was the big idea that we had. Because in the script we found this moment where Willy is falling asleep as a small child and his mother is singing to him and making chocolate, and she wraps a piece of chocolate up in a piece of paper and writes Wonka on it and tucks it into his suitcase. And we thought that that was just a beautiful moment. And so we thought that that was sort of the perfect beginning of Wonka's story. And so we, and again, when I say we, I don't mean me, went and drew a million different versions of the word Wonka to get to exactly the sort of perfect version that was just enough handwriting, just enough logo for this to be something that could go on a film. And then the filmmakers who loved the idea conceptually, it was like one of the first times that we actually got the filmmakers to sort of say like, yes, your graphic designers actually had a great addition to the storytelling. Yes, we want to do that. However, we've made this W. Can you put this W on your logo? And we hated that W. And we kept calling it Twonka. But because they asked, we did a whole bunch of versions of it with that on it. But then in the end, and I genuinely like the people who are making this film. I love our client so much. His name is John Stanford. I really do love him, and I also really like and respect the people who are making the film. They actually decided that this was the right W. See, you spend so much time thinking about W's and the weird curves and how it hits the A and where it didn't. You all know, we all do this all day long. And I know that this talk is a little less esoteric than Eric's, but I love this as much as I love your talks, both of yours. Like, I love what I do on a daily basis, and it's my passion, and it's all of our passions, and so there you go. Anyway, so then we had to make a whole bunch of proof of concept things to sort of explain to them how it would look in the film, which then sold them on. Actually, they're probably in the process of putting the logo with our logo into those confectionery stores in the film, which would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they're still arguing about it while we're still waiting for the trailer to come out. But these are all samples of what the logo will look like in the film. And while we've all been waiting for the trailer to come out in anticipation, one little thing got leaked. And I found it, which was this. Okay, last story. Oh, you know, you work on something for so long, and then you get these hideous shorts. Okay, Warner Records. This is a heartbreaker, but with a happy ending. So this one is called WX the Y? These are puns that, never mind. So we were asked to redo the identity for Warner Records. Warner Records had leased the shield from Warner. Time was running out. They could no longer use the shield. The shield had to be removed. Also, the word brothers. They could keep Warner, but they couldn't keep brothers. So we had to work on renaming them, and we had to come up with a new identity that would no longer use the shield. So obviously when the new logo comes out online, everyone says, why did they get rid of the shield? And the answer is because we had to. Anyway, ironically, at the same time, we were also doing the new identity for Warner Brothers, where we kept the shield. So these two things were happening at the same time. So we were working on Warner Brothers Records, which we renamed Warner Records. We said it was great to get rid of the brothers because it was so gendered anyway. It was much more inclusive. Warner Records, way better name. But so while working on it, in doing our research, we got to go to the Warner Records archives, which looks a little bit like this, which is, Indiana Jones, but it is where they keep everything from Warner Records archives. Every album cover, every photo shoot, anything printed, any ephemera, actual size cutouts of like Bruce Springsteen selling something or whatever. It wasn't Bruce Springsteen, I can't remember who. Oh, it was, what's his name from Van Halen? Not Sammy Hagar, David Lee Roth, yes. Eddie Vedder is from Pearl Jam. But David Lee Roth, yes. Anyway, so we got to go there and spend a day as inspiration in the Warner archives, and it was incredible. There was literally a sign that said, like, tapes this way, tapes that way, you are here. But it was, and we weren't allowed to take pictures, but occasionally you would, oops. And then sometimes they let us. So, I think that was Pentagram. But like also all the recorded music, like all the 1-inch recorded music of like Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra and Neil Young and Prince, fucking Prince, and all of their printed materials, all the 45s, all the LPs, they're all there in this one place. The Grateful Dead stuff is in a cage because Grateful Dead fans are so rabid that they break in and try to get into it, so it has to be in a separate, sealed-off place within the secret location. But like, I swear, like, the contact sheets for Prince's I'm a Prince fan. The contact sheets for Prince's Controversy, the original shoot from Madonna's first album cover, art directed by my friend Karen Goldberg, who recently passed away. That's a picture of Joni Mitchell that Neil Young took. Like, it's just unbelievable. Anyway, while we were there, I said, because to the guy who has to take you around because you have to be with a person the whole time, I said, I did some albums for Warner back when I used to work at M & Company. And the guy said, like what? Name one. And I said, I don't know, Laurie Anderson's Strange Angels. And he took out his little, handheld device and went boop, 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 rolled a ladder across like a shelf, and climbed up on it, took out a folder. The folder had this in the corner, and inside it were my mechanicals from 28 years ago. My handwriting on them, the tissue, nobody knows. Does anyone know what a mechanical is? Like, it's like the tissue paper, the thing that says, like, print the blue over black, make it pop, whatever that means. Like, blacks must be rich and cool. Like, all of that stuff. And then at M & Company, we used to have to like sign off on a mechanical so that make sure that everything is spelled right, everything is cut right, everything. My handwriting, my signature, Tibor's signature, Tibor, my old boss and mentor, who has passed away, like it was like that scene in Ratatouille where he eats the ratatouille and it goes whoop. Like it was one of the most incredible personal moments. But they have not just, it's incredible. And now it's all digital. So like, somewhere there's a chip. Not that I'm a Luddite, because I am not. Anyway, back to Warner Records. So the idea of Warner Records, I'm almost done. The idea of Warner Records is that we also did the strategy for them, because we do a lot of strategy work, which is also great, was the idea that they were going from a legacy to a leader, because they were a little dusty in terms of the brand. So we looked, this was the history of their identity, these are who their artists are, everyone from Talking Heads to Dua Lipa. This is the world of record labels, yeah, fine. But they wanted to be sort of modern and fit in this world. Tidal. SoundCloud. But this was a few years ago. So we came up with this idea that they were a major record label that felt like an indie. And also California is a huge part of their story. Like the fact that they're in California, that they've always been in California, it's a really big part of their brand. So we came up with this idea for them that the indie part is that they're born in the California sun, but they're at home everywhere on earth. So that became their tagline, their mantra. So that everyone bought off on, we moved on, fine. So then we started to work on the logo, and we agreed on some points at the beginning of basic logo assumptions. Should be a W or a monogram, because Warner Brothers had been a W and a B, so it should be a W or monogram versus an abstract thing or something illustrative. Should feel large, solid, and powerful. Should live comfortably in any era or genre of music, right? Because they have all different kinds of things. So we presented a few things, and I'm going to show you the two main contenders. First one was called Monumental.
I ain't with the back and forth, I ain't back and forth, fuck up what you're asking for, but just back and forth, but if your man still back on me, ain't that important, like, when you put it like that, you right.
And then we did a whole bunch of proof of concept things to sell it through, like one does. Hot air balloon, and then we show it on vinyl, and then how it sat in its competitive set. I also want to say that they were a wonderful client. We worked with Tom and Aaron, who are the co-heads of the company. They were very creative. They were really involved, very interested. Pleasure to work with. Second idea called Magic Hour, because Magic Hour is like when the sun sets. It's that perfect moment in the day. And then, so it's a W and an R, and it's a little sun. It had it all. And so, again, a bunch of proof of concept stuff on the label, some social media. There you go, there it is, looking like a sunset. There it is. Here are the two logos. We presented it. A unanimous decision. Everyone, that one. That's it. We love it. Great. Awesome. Doesn't always go that way, but really nice. So the EVP and the COO or the CCO, yes, proved it. So it has to go up a chain. You have to present and present and present and present. Then the CEO and the COO, yep, thumbs up. Then the next CEO, whoever that was, and then the other CEO. I mean, literally, we had to go to meeting after meeting after meeting. Then the owner of the Warner Music Group, he approved it, and then after that, we had to present to Warner Media, who owns Warner Records. No. Why? Now, remember at the beginning I said that they had a lease on the Shield? There was a finite day when that lease was running out. So that clock had been ticking down during all of this. Now there was like a month and a half left before there would be no logo. Somewhere along the line, someone missed that. Not someone at Pentagram, but someone. Someone on perhaps the legal team somewhere along the way missed this particular thing. And this, like the needle scratching across the record, that was the end of that logo. So suddenly, there were new restrictions. There were new rules for the logo. The first one being, the logo cannot feature a W. The second one was, the typography cannot resemble the Warner Media logo. This had never been mentioned to us before. This was the Warner Media logo. In the end, the types. The next one cannot be a logofication of a word mark. We learned that that meant that the word mark could not be like a punny word mark, like it couldn't have like look like something else, like it couldn't be a bird also or something. And then also Warner and Records must be the same size. And then if there is an icon, the icon cannot be bigger than the logo type. These are all things that had to be before they could approve it. And on top of that, we had to show it to Warner Media. Warner Media had to check off all of these boxes before the actual creative team at Warner Records could even sort of agree, could even, I think, look at it. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember correctly, but I think they couldn't even look at it till after that was done. And now we had like a month. So we rallied. Oh, so this is what I pictured. So we rallied all the, again, fabulous designers on my team. We pulled in some more people, and we spent a lot of time. And this is what we made. So that's the Warner Records logo. It's a sun, it's a record, it's setting. I think there might be a tiny bit of logofication of the word records because it's also setting into the water. But that was the logo that is now the Warner Records logo. And it's kind of, I love it. I actually sort of love it more than the logo that they chose. It's actually more useful. They can use it as a window. It looks like, you know, a record. It looks great on swag, it looks good on social media. It's one of those things where in the end, we were sort of forced to rethink something and it sort of came out better. Now they have a giant one of those setting sun record things at every location, and when artists come in, they all sign it, so it's just getting layered and layered and layered and layered. They're supposed to send me an image of it, but this is what it looks like in use and in practice. That's still a comp. But this is the actual Warner Records headquarters. They use it everywhere. That's a Shepard Fairey thing using it. They actually built it into the headquarters in Los Angeles. It's a tunnel that you walk through, which is kind of great. And this is the launch video. Okay, and then I just have one little more thing, which is over the past year, we do a lot of other things, and this is 1 minute's worth of everything that we've done, we've done. And like I said, I don't do any of this. Thank you. I don't do any of this by myself. I wouldn't know how to. I wouldn't know where to begin. These are the names of the people who have done the work, some from teams before, and the rest are my team now, who again are here tonight. And I thank you guys. It's a pleasure working with you every single day. You're brilliant and funny and smart, and I thank you, and thank you all for coming, and it's been a pleasure.